Don't splurge with your son's money. Poor old folks, just go home.
During a vacation to celebrate my 60th birthday, Karen hurled these unbelievable words at my husband and me. My anger reached its peak when I heard what she said. "Shall we go home then?"
Yeah.
She probably didn't think we would actually leave. Leaving a bewildered Karen behind, we decided to go back home, leaving her in a foreign land. We are going to show her hell. My name is Alice Howard. I am a housewife who turned 60 this year. My husband and I, married for 30 years, were invited by our son Tommy to go on a trip to Maldives.
Mom and Dad, I never got to do anything parent-honoring for you. This is just a small token of my gratitude. Let's go together. No holding back.
I have 6 children, and Tommy, as the eldest son, has been supporting us. I worked part-time until our 4th child was born, spending my days overrun with childcare and housework, with just a few minutes to myself each day. Of course, there was never any time alone, and I can't even remember having a fun coffee time with friends since the kids came along. During this time, our son Tommy, since starting elementary school, took the initiative to help me and also took care of his siblings. With my husband busy as a company employee, Tommy's support was invaluable to me. I felt an immense gratitude towards him. As the hectic days went by, Tommy grew up, got married, and left the house, followed by the other children moving out for marriage or to the big city. It was just my husband and me left at home. While reminiscing about those noisy days, enjoying coffee with my now retired husband, Tommy came home for a visit after a long time. He had something important to discuss, which turned out to be this delightful invitation, and my husband and I were overjoyed. However, this conversation would lead us to an unbelievable situation.
Why did you even invite your in-laws to the trip?
These were the words of Tommy's wife, Karen. As Tommy, who brought his wife home, enjoyed a family dinner for the first time in a while, Karen called him out to the hallway during the discussion about the upcoming Maldives trip. Worried, I peeked to see what was happening and saw Karen confronting Tommy. Karen, with a terrifyingly harsh tone, was getting up in Tommy's face, giving him the evil eye.
It makes sense, doesn't it? The trip is also a celebration of the folks' 60th birthdays. Why wouldn't we invite them?
Why should we have to pay for them? If you're inviting them, they should at least pay their own way. Your mother does nothing but lays around at home. It's outrageous to think we should cover for such a slothful person.
Karen was a nurse, and Tommy was in the position of a doctor. They had no children, and she despised me for being a stay-at-home mom raising kids.
Excuses like no time to work don't fly with me. Time is made. People who can't manage their time just say that to escape. I absolutely refuse to spend my money for such a lazy person. I won't allow it.
Her yelling seemed to be aimed at making sure I could hear it inside the room, making my heart ache. I knew I wasn't exactly favored before, but I never imagined I was this disliked. And to think, they believed I was a stay-at-home mom because I was lazy, which brought tears to my eyes, is just unbelievable. Yet, Tommy didn't hesitate to defend me against Karen's words.
You haven't raised 6 kids, so what gives you the right to act all high and mighty? Talk about it after you've walked in the same shoes. I respect my mom and am thankful to both of my parents. I'm taking them on this trip no matter what, got it?
To think my son had grown up to value his parents so much. I was deeply moved and cried silently, careful not to reveal my presence to Karen and Tommy. After that day, Karen became more hostile towards me when Tommy wasn't around. She would criticize the taste of my cooking, and during visits home would say things like "it smells musty," trying to belittle me with her words. It must have been too much for her to accept that Tommy defended me. Initially, I was downhearted and wondered why I had to endure this, but Tommy's words from that day helped me hold on. However, that changed when Tommy called me, saying he needed to talk.
Sorry for this, Dennis. I'm thinking of divorcing Karen.
My husband and I were shocked at the straightforward declaration. When we asked what happened, Tommy showed us 2 photos. In them, a woman who looked like Karen was arm in arm with an unfamiliar man. "What's this?"
While I was at a medical conference, a colleague sent this to me. Karen meeting up with some guy.
So, Karen is having an affair.
It was a shocking revelation. I might be biased, but I can't see any reason why someone would cheat on Tommy. Financially and looks-wise, there was nothing to complain about from a third-party perspective. Even relatives begged to have their daughter marry Tommy, as he was such an accomplished son. It's unbelievable that Tommy would be cheated on. I doubted my own ears hearing such an incredible story.
After we get married, I found out Karen had always been quite the player. She held back for a while to marry me, but it seems like she went back to her old ways when my business trips increased. At home and even at work, her lack of motivation has become too obvious recently. Honestly, I don't have the confidence to continue with her.
Hearing this, while he gripped the hem of his trousers with a pained expression, made my heart tighten. From a parent's perspective, he was always contributive at home. He grew into a kind son who understands people's pain, which to me is an invaluable treasure. Who could stand seeing such a son hurt like this?
That's why I'm thinking of getting a divorce, but this alone isn't enough to confront her with it. So, I need your help.
With that, Tommy made a certain proposal to us. Though shocked by what he suggested, if it would help Tommy, both my husband and I agreed to his plan. We decided to pull one over on Karen, so we came up with a plan. Time passed, and on the day of the trip, my husband George and I drove to Tommy's house to pick up Karen.
Thanks for picking me up, George.
She came out of the house wearing a wide brim hat and a white dress, clearly trying to play the part of a scheming woman. In fact, Karen had been making moves on my husband for a while now. Probably because his birth family was wealthy. Her eagerness for money was blatantly obvious. Whenever Tommy wasn't around, she would sidle up next to my husband, even once lying about getting carsick just to take my seat in the front of the car. Later, when I asked Tommy about it, it turned out to be a complete lie. She never had motion sickness. At that time, there was no reason to doubt her, so we just took her at her word, but now it's different. I'm certain that everything I had suspicions about was a lie, and both my husband and I are on high alert. However, showing our hand would ruin the plan. Today is our supposed celebration trip, but it's really to carry out our plan. We can't let her suspect a thing. My husband and I made sure to act as usual.
Tommy said he'll come later, so he asked us to go ahead to the destination. He's busy with work, it seems.
Landing at the airport and going through the procedures, Karen muttered her words with a bored expression. She probably wanted to flaunt having my husband and Tommy to herself, making me jealous. Whenever it was just the four of us, Karen acted in ways that seemed designed to stoke my jealousy. Looking back, I can see so many of these behaviors now. Why didn't I notice them before? Well, I did notice, but I think I just suppressed it. Thinking about all the hardships Tommy went through, I feared my feelings would interfere with his happiness, so I kept silent. But I don't need to hold back anymore. Standing confidently next to my husband, Karen wrapped her arm around his with a sullen expression.
I've never been on an overseas trip with my father, so I'm thrilled to be traveling with my father-in-law, George. You're making up for the memories I couldn't have with my father.
With a cackling laugh that seemed almost cartoonish, she flaunted a smug smile at me, then clung to my husband's arm, pushing her chest against him. My husband looked more annoyed than pleased by her actions, but Karen seemed oblivious to his discomfort. She was eagerly watching to see how I would react. But I maintained a firm demeanor, silently pleading with my husband to endure it, as we finished the boarding process. We boarded the plane with a tense atmosphere. And soon, in a far-off foreign land, she would face her comeuppance. After a long journey, we arrived at Vellena International Airport, greeted by cheerful flight attendants. Tommy was supposed to guide us, but he was absent due to work. As we wondered what to do next, Karen sweetly sidled up to my husband.
Can't we hire a guide now, George? I only got a little spending money from Tommy, and I don't have much on me.
Despite having a decent income herself, Karen seemed fully expecting to be treated by us. I guess there's also the matter of making sure my husband brought extra cash. His sigh of disbelief revealed his clear view of her sordid intentions.
Karen, I hate to say this, but we're here because Tommy invited us. You know, trying to make us pay seems a bit off, doesn't it?
I felt a jolt inside. He sounded like a grumpy old man laying on a guilt trip. It was hard to predict how Karen would react to such blunt words. The initial plan was to act upon reaching the hotel, but my husband unexpectedly took the initiative, causing me a bit of panic.
What are you saying? Do you want me, who didn't bring much money, to hire a guide?
We're questioning the expectation that you're entitled to our hospitality. Alice and I are here at Tommy's invitation. We heard he's taking care of the expenses, so we didn't bring much cash either. Assuming we'll just cover for you doesn't seem right.
Upon hearing we didn't have cash on hand, Karen clicked her tongue and distanced herself from my husband, raking through her hair with a lazy gesture. Both my husband and I were stunned by her blatant demeanor, which seemed to suggest that interacting with us was a waste of effort.
If you don't have money, just say so clearly. Really, useless old folks.
Karen's voice was loud enough to be clearly heard. At that moment, when she revealed her true colors, my husband and I exchanged glances and proceeded with our plan. Hey, Karen, that's no way to talk.
We're just stating the plain truth.
A lecture from both of you. I don't need that. Acting like it's natural for me to treat you, but you're relying on Tommy's money for this trip, too. Thinking you wouldn't have to spend a penny because you're being celebrated, right? You're no different, so I don't want your high and mighty lectures.
Looks like she's done pretending to be nice to us. She suddenly changed her attitude, stood arrogantly, looked down on my husband and me, and said something condescending in a mocking tone.
Don't live it up on your son's dime. Poor old folks, just go home.
At her words, my anger peaked. Shall we go home then?
Yeah.
Without taking the bait, I calmly spoke to my husband, but then Karen, flustered, interjected.
Talking big when you don't even have a return ticket. What's the point? That's hilarious.
Actually, she had only been given the one-way ticket by Tommy. She was explicitly told to be prone to losing things and is unreliable by Tommy, so she reluctantly settled for a one-way ticket, only to find out she couldn't return to the US without him. She ended up in a situation. But we are supposed to be unaware of her situation. If we were to find out about this pathetic situation, it would undermine her dignity. That's probably why all she could muster were these tough words. However, we already knew the story from Tommy. And we had already received something from him. No return ticket. What made you say that? I then pulled out the return plane tickets, including my husband's. Karen was dumbfounded. Speechless, her mouth agape. We do have our return tickets, you know.
Why do you guys have tickets?
Why, it's normal to hold on to your own ticket, right? Or what? Don't tell me you didn't get a return ticket from Tommy. I couldn't help but sneer at her, showing that Tommy trusted us more than her, a sweet revenge for all the taunts. Even for someone like me, a stay-at-home mom she looked down upon, to mock her over such a trivial matter must be unbearable for her pride. While feeling somewhat petty, considering everything up to now, this was nothing. If anything, it was not enough. Watching her turn red with rage, I felt a sense of satisfaction.
No way. Just go home already. Just seeing your faces irritates me.
Her retort, almost like sour grapes, secretly had me holding back laughter. The sight of Karen retreating in frustration was incredibly satisfying. She had mocked others enough. Let her fully taste the misfortune. With that in mind, my husband and I decided to wander around the airport area until our flight back. After leaving Karen behind and returning to the US swiftly, we met up with Tommy at a cafe near the airport, as planned. Seeing us back, Tommy greeted us with a wry smile.
Welcome back, both of you. That quick return flight must have been tiring.
My body's all stiff, even in first class. It's stuff on the old bones.
Sorry, Tommy, for making such a quick return. especially in those nice seats.
I should be thanking you. Sorry for pushing you so hard, okay?
Stop it. I'm still young at heart.
But I was worried, you suddenly starting a fight with Karen at the airport, doing something unplanned. I didn't know what to do.
I just couldn't take it anymore. I had such a strong dislike for that flirty act of hers.
As my husband apologized with a rueful laugh, Tommy's phone started ringing. From Karen.
Yeah. It's been ringing off the hook since hotel check-in time. I bet she panicked when she found out her hotel reservation get canceled without her knowing. She's such a princess who can't do anything on her own.
Tommy scoffed at his continuously buzzing phone in silent mode. It was my first time seeing this dark side of him, and I made a mental note never to anger him.
Thanks to you guys, I gained a lot here and think I can finally divorce her. Really, thank you. Sorry for involving you in such a mess during your milestone celebration.
Don't be silly. In a way, this is a celebration for me too, knowing you won't have to put up with that anymore. During the few hours until Karen returned to the country, we enjoyed some rare quality time, just the family. Then, the moment of truth arrived.
Tommy, what on earth is this all about? Explain yourself.
After receiving an email from Karen saying she was on the plane, we headed to the airport. As soon as she stepped off the plane and saw me, she let out a roar that could echo throughout the airport. Realizing this was too conspicuous, we quickly got her into the car and drove to their house. Once home, Karen noticed something was amiss.
What is this? What's going on here?
She realized the house looked unusually bare.
Let's explain things in order. Shall we go to the living room first?
Ignoring the bewildered Karen, we proceeded inside. While thanking Tommy for the coffee, we quickly moved to the main topic.
Karen, we need to talk.
Before that, explain. What were you thinking, doing such a thing? Because of you. It's been one disaster after another. I couldn't get into the hotel, and I had to communicate with gestures because I couldn't ask people anything. Do you know how many times I was given the wrong directions? I walked so much I thought I was mountain climbing, and I'm exhausted. My legs are sore from the muscle pain. And then the return flight was in the cheap economy seats. Economy. I never thought I'd have to pawn my luxury watch.
As her shrill voice became too much to bear, my husband and I exchanged incredulous looks. Apparently, she had pawned her watch to get some money. Amid this, Tommy watched her intently, and after she finished her tirade, he quietly spoke.
Is that all you wanted to say?
What did you say?
Karen's eyebrows twitched in surprise, probably expecting an apology from Tommy, but his unexpected response took her aback. It must have been the first time she saw Tommy. You had always been kind and indulgent, looking at her so defiantly. She glared at him, trying to intimidate, but Tommy met her gaze unflinchingly.
So, you have no idea why you're in this situation?
Tommy's probing words seemed to finally make her question. Karen started speaking with a cold look and a haughty attitude, crossing her legs.
Of course. Who leaves their wife stranded abroad? What did I do?
She's sticking to her story. Nobody knows about her affair. She seemed to think so, Tommy sighed in exasperation, then showed her 4 photos. I didn't miss how her face went pale instantly.
Let's see if you recognize this.
Presented with undeniable photographic evidence of her affair, Karen faltered. There were 2 photos added there, showing Karen and the man she cheated with after their affair, and when my husband and I saw them, we looked at her with contempt. We looked at her as if she were something vile, putting distance between us.
You've been wasting my money for a while, and I noticed. But I also knew it's true that I made you feel lonely. I'm a workaholic, often choosing my job over family, so I said nothing. But I never imagined you were financing this man.
Tommy had hired a detective to discreetly investigate Karen until this trip. It was revealed that her lover was a gigolo, and she was his top-paying client, giving him the biggest tips. Their relationship had developed into a romantic affair, clearly crossing the line between a client and a service provider. Tommy found out that when he was away on business trips, he had been staying in their house for several nights.
You said you had a terrible time in Maldives. Then what about this? You deceived me, laughed behind my back, and even complained about me to your lover, calling me nothing but money, useless. I've confirmed it myself by meeting with him directly. I even have the audio of that conversation.
You met him.
Of course. I figured your side of the story would be full of lies. I got everything out of him first.
He then showed her what appeared to be a voice recorder, and Karen seemed to resign herself to the situation. She started to profusely apologize to Tommy.
I'm sorry, my dear. Please forgive me. It was just a moment of madness.
A moment of madness. I inadvertently reacted to her words. So, a moment of madness makes it okay for you to hurt Tommy like that. Tommy had always shielded me from her, caring for me. I knew how hard he had worked to balance his job and household duties for the sake of his family. Her words, betraying him so casually, made something inside me snap. How could you think an apology would suffice after all the pain you caused Tommy? My eyes welled with tears, more from anger than sadness. My husband comforted me, wrapping an arm around my shoulder and gently hugging me. Watching us, Tommy then presented her with divorce papers.
I've heard about everything you did to Mom and Dad. I have no intention of continuing with you. This house will be sold. Pack your things and leave immediately. No matter if you deny the divorce, I am determined to proceed with mediation to separate from you. What you've done is now coming back to haunt you. Just accept it.
And so, our family cut ties with her. Even afterward, Karen kept pleading with Tommy, but he had run out of patience and coldly rebuffed her, finding her cries annoying, and decided to move back to our home until the divorce was finalized. The emptiness of their house was due to Tommy having movers transfer his belongings back to our place. Seeing everything being efficiently handled, I was impressed by how sharp he always was. As Tommy predicted, the divorce proceedings went to mediation. Karen, who had repeatedly denied wanting a divorce, couldn't escape it after photos of her affair and the lover's testimony came to light. She was even ordered to pay alimony, and the divorce was finalized. She came to our house several times, wanting to meet Tommy, but I turned her away at the gate. While apologizing for her disrespect towards me, she begged to speak to Tommy. However, I was furious. Stop taking us for granted. I will never forget what you've done, no matter what. Don't ever show your face to our family again. With that, I called the police, and after that, she never appeared before us again. Finally, we regained our peaceful days. Thanks to Tommy's arrangement, we were able to redo our 60th birthday celebration. The whole family gathered, along with our children and grandchildren, for a grand celebration.
Mom, Dad, live a long and healthy life.
While thanking Tommy, saying this with a bright smile, I watched over the happiness and growth of the children.